What's up, everybody? Hey, tonight I'm going to be changing out the jet drive on this 2003 Suzuki DF90. This is the Johnson version for those of you that don't know. Suzuki made all of Johnson's four-strokes there for a period of time. So underneath this hood and behind these labels is a Suzuki DF90 2003 model. I've got a jet drive on it now, and I'm going to change back to the prop. So I change every year. I run a shallower river in the fall and the wintertime, so I switch over, but we've got plenty of water now, and it's long past due to put the prop back on. I'm burning fuel, and I'm losing a lot of power with the jet. For those of you that aren't aware of the jet drive setup, it's a 40% power loss. So I'm running 40 mile an hour roughly with this boat with the prop, and you know, depending on the load, I'm getting 25 to 30 miles an hour, and I'm burning a lot more fuel. So what I've got here is I've got a setup for a manual jack plate, because with the jet drive you've got to be considerably higher on the transom in order to get the jet to be level with the bottom of the boat the way it needs to be. So as you can kind of see, the foot's coming just there at the level at the bottom of the boat. My prop, if I were to put my prop on right there, it'd be way too high. So that's what the manual jack plate's for. This is a 2-inch setback jack plate, manual jack plate, and basically swap the prop back on, take this and move it down, and after that you're just going to be changing the shift cable. So like my shift cable right here is going down to my bucket to control the reverse. I'm going to be taking that, I'm going to be putting that back up inside the cowling here where it needs to be. So I figured I'd do a little video here because I don't think anybody's really touched on this too much on YouTube. So I know when I was looking into this, I was pretty curious, and it was hard to find stuff. So bear with me here, and I'll give you guys a look. So the first thing that's got to happen, guys, if we get in here to get this off, it's not like a lower unit install or removal when everything is accessible from the outside. You've actually got to take off the shoe and get up in there and take off the impeller and all the shims. So you get up into the housing. Once you get up into the housing here, you can reach all your bolts and everything in order to get this pulled off of the motor. As you can see, guys, my shoe here has been welded on before, but we're going to remove all these bolts around the outside edge here. That's how you're going to access the impeller. You can see, guys, now you have your impeller. You take that big nut off there, pull everything out of there. Alright, I've already got the impeller loose here. Your impeller nut, but it had the bendable clip there, you know, that holds your nut tight. But also, I gotta get a hammer and hit this part off. You got to take off your, this is your sleeve right here, this part around here, and it's already loose. It comes off actually with the foot, so I'll give that some taps and I'll get that off there. But once that's off there, you can go ahead and pull your nuts. So you pay attention to these shims. This is all your shims that's setting your clearance between your impeller and your sleeve. So you got to make sure you pay attention to that. If it doesn't need adjustment, you can put it back the way that it was next time you use it. Here you have it. There's your sleeve, and you can see mine's pretty wore. But, you know, it was running pretty good, so next time I throw this jet on, I'll probably just leave it as it is. Alright, so this is what you have now. Got your nut. Like I say, pay attention to all this stuff that's on here. Keep it all in order. It's going to help you in the future. If you are selling this to somebody else, or if you're like me and you're going to put it right back on in the fall, you pay attention to how everything's in order. And that way, it'll be easier when you go to put it on next year. I'll have to give this a couple taps to get it off too. It's a little free, so same thing. Backside, pay attention to what's there. In my case, I've got 2 washers. That's it. Just 2 washers. There's the back of your impeller. And there, of course, there is a key. See the key there. Pay attention to that too. Alright guys, so we took off the foot, we took off the sleeve, we took off the impeller, all the spacers and everything, and now this is what you have. And if you can see this here, you've got your bolts here. 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts. Now those 4 bolts are the ones that are holding this on. Those 4 on top of this one as well. And that's going to go up into this little adapter. So I'll show you that in a minute. But we're going to start by taking those 4 bolts out. You don't want to take out these 4 that are around this bearing housing. Those are going to stay. These bolts are a 1/2 inch, just like the other, just like the ones that are around the shoe. Those 4 bolts. This guy out here too. Alright guys, I got those bolts broke free there, but before I go any further here, I need to remove my shift cable. It's just going to take a couple, there's a couple small screws and nuts there, as you can see, that hold your adjustment there. And then you've got a 7/16 down here. All the rest of the stuff will stay on there. So you're just taking out this one here and that one there, and then this cable is going to end up going back up inside your cowling. Alright guys, this is the way I do it. I left this top bolt in here loosely. I've got all my bolts out inside the housing here, and I've removed my shift cable off of this plate here. Everything's been removed there. And before I actually pull this off, and I got this thing up and off the ground, I'm going to go ahead and put the impeller and stuff back on the way it was, just because it's easier to do at this level. Alright, so got that back together. Like I say, everything is super loose. I'm going to go ahead and pull out this top bolt that's holding everything in right now. Now this should come off. There it is, guys. And I can take this and set it down because I've got the foot on it. For those of you wondering, these are a 5/8 socket. The reason that was kind of hanging up there a little bit, it's got that little dowel pin there. You see that? That's the reason it's kind of hanging up there towards the end. That's kind of what lines everything up. But those bolts come out, that comes off, and now you're back to square one with where your lower unit would usually be. I've got my lower unit here. This is what I've got. Just back to square one, guys, with the lower unit install. Nothing crazy there. Make sure your water pump line there is lined up. Make sure you put a little anti-seize or grease on your drive shaft there, and then depending on your motor, you've got your shift shaft too. On these DFs, it's just a turn right there, so nothing crazy there. I'm gonna go ahead and put it on. Time to take off the motor here. Take off the cowl. Hook up a shift cable. The reason I'm doing that now is when I put the lower unit on, everything's in the neutral position. So these screws here are just Phillips head screws. Pull out the side cowling so you can access the shift cables and put that shift cable that was on the bucket back into the side cowl and into the motor so it will work with the prop. Your shift cable back on. You got your grommet here. You've got a screw here, your Phillips head screw you have to undo. And you can kind of see where that cable's supposed to go. That'll go right in there. And it'll hook up right on that pin. You can see your neutral safety switch in there. That's neutral there. Wiggle, wiggle. Don't force it, guys. It should go pretty easy. One bolt in, something to hold it. We have it just like that, guys. When you're doing that, just make sure that your shifter's in neutral, and you should be in good shape as long as your outdrive was in neutral when you took it off. Kind of set yourself up for success there. Some motors have linkage that has a pin, that has to go through. In my case, I've just got, I don't know if you can see that. It's just mine just turns, so there's nothing that actually pins, or it just actually pushes up into place, and it's a gear there. So for these Suzukis, it's not that big a deal compared to some of the other ones. All right, 7 bolts. 7 bolts holds down the lower unit, and then you add in the fact that you've got your little fin here that's got a bolt in it as well. That'll make 8. Bolt everything up. Next step is going to be the jack plate. All right, lower unit's back on, tight. Check your torque specs with your manual there. Motor needs a bath, that's for sure. I'm not going to put the side cowl on the other side because I'm going to go ahead and drop the oil on this motor when I'm done here. So obviously you'd want to do that if you weren't doing the oil change. But I'm going to go ahead and adjust that jack plate now. The jack plate comes down to, you loosen these 2 bolts. You got 1 bolt here, 1 bolt there. As you can see, it's a track system there. And then you just maneuver these bolts here to lower it and raise it. You kind of have to do a little bit at a time on each side so it doesn't bind on you. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to pop these loose a little bit on each side, and then I'm going to start turning this nut. I've already got them loosened, as you can see. The other side, I'll turn that. Everything should start coming down little by little. The reason this is not moving right now with me having that loose is because these are tight. So I'll go ahead and pop everything loose and get her started on its way down. All right, there you have it. I'm all the way down. I'm actually I have a loose nut there because these side brackets are all the way down. See how they're sitting on the bolts? So I'm going to go ahead and leave those adjusting rods loose, tighten up these, get those tight so they straighten out, because if you can see they're kind of crooked there. They'll straighten out and end up where they need to be. And then when I'm all finished tightening those up down there, I'll tighten up my adjusting rods. And it's still pretty high for a prop to be running, but it works out, at least in my case. I have no issues with the whole shot, so that's it, guys. Jack plate's adjusted all the way down, as you can see. I'm going to drop the oil in this motor, so I'm not going to put any cowlings on it, but did the best I could. If you guys got any questions, or if anybody wants to correct me, the way they do it or a better way to do it, then put it down in the comments. Thanks for watching.